There's a journey I've always wanted to make to the most remote parts of Britain.
And I mean remote. Not the islands of Scotland or the mountains of Wales, but the UK overseas territories. 14 islands and archipelagos scattered all across the 7 seas.
It's a journey that will take me from a barren volcano on the equator to the icebound wilderness in Antarctica, to remote islands in the Pacific, and to tropical swamps in the Caribbean. Every new landing reveals more remarkable wildlife and a fascinating history. Most people have no idea these places exist, let alone they're British. And they all have a rich and diverse wildlife heritage, a real treasure on these remote British islands. The British Antarctic Territory is a place of surreal beauty, a landscape of sculptured ice, where leopard seals feel at home. Further north lie the rugged shores of South Georgia. This dramatic island is home to some of the greatest wildlife spectacles on the planet. Beaches lined with king penguins and fur seals, and some of the penguin colonies are among the largest that exist.
These breeding sites are some of the greatest concentrations of animals anywhere on Earth.
In complete contrast, the British Indian Ocean Territory lies in the tropics, a series of tiny islands rising from 7 huge coral atolls. The biggest, the Great Chagos Bank, is the largest coral atoll on the planet. And beneath the waves are some of the most unspoiled coral reefs on Earth. The tiny islands are home to vast colonies of tropical seabirds.
It's definite there's so many birds!
Red-footed boobies and sooty terns. Huge colonies of sooty terns also live on Ascension Island in the centre of the Atlantic Ocean. The overseas territories are vitally important places for birds. 90% of the world's population of black-browed albatrosses come to the Falkland Islands to breed. So too do gentoo penguins. Chinstrap penguins flock to Elephant Island, an icebound speck of land just off Antarctica. And further south, more penguins shelter under the British flag, gentoos at Port Lockroy on Antarctica itself.
Extremely cold. Hands are pink and not working anymore.
The overseas territories also shelter a wealth of mammals. Subantarctic fur seals perform underwater ballets around the shores of Tristan De Pinna in the middle of the southern Atlantic. Humpback whales feed in the rich Antarctic waters. Large schools of Cormorant's dolphins live around the Falkland Islands. And enormous elephant seals haul up onto the Falklands' deserted beaches. Even bigger numbers use South Georgia's rugged coasts.
These elephant seals weigh up to 4 tons.
The overseas territories are also home to creatures found nowhere else but a few tiny islands. On the Cayman Islands, sister isles iguanas loaf around the porch of the local museum. It's hard to believe these lizards are critically endangered. On Grand Cayman, there's an even stranger lizard, the Cayman blue iguana, which turns a striking shade of blue when warmed by the sun. It's found only on Grand Cayman, and it too is on the verge of extinction. But across all the territories, there are people working hard to protect these species. On Grand Cayman, there's a breeding centre for the blue iguanas that's proved so successful, it's brought the blue iguanas back from the brink. On Montserrat, conservationists are helping another rare creature.
Yeah, they got one.
You've got one?
Yeah.
The mountain chicken, an enormous frog. The overseas territories are also home to tortoises and to giant sea turtles. Green turtles use Ascension Island's beaches to breed. And under protection from island conservationists, this is now the second largest green turtle colony in the whole Atlantic. Often neglected, the invertebrates of the overseas territories are just as spectacular. As well as green turtles, vast numbers of land crabs assemble on Ascension's beaches to spawn.
At their spawning sites, such as this one, the crabs hide away during the heat of the day amongst these cool rocks where it's moist. But then when the night comes, they really become active.
Crabs abound on all of the territories in the tropics.
But there's one species of crab that rules supreme on these islands.
It's the coconut crab, the biggest land invertebrate alive today. And in the vast marine protected area around the British Indian Ocean territory, they grow to huge sizes, with a leg span of perhaps a metre. Here, they feast on coconuts. Some of the invertebrates are vanishingly rare. The spiky yellow woodlouse, found only on St. Helena, is down to just a few hundred individuals. When it was discovered by the Portuguese, St. Helena, in the centre of the southern Atlantic, was a verdant island, home to unique plants and animals. Today, much of the island's native vegetation has disappeared, eaten by introduced grazing animals. And many unique species of animals have vanished. Those that are left are now the subject of intensive studies and conservation measures. St. Helena's own cuckoo, crake, swamp hen, hoopoe, and several petrels are all extinct. The last of St. Helena's endemic birds is the wirebird.
Oh, that's a wirebird nest right here.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
It's now carefully monitored.
Wow, 2 eggs.
But its tiny chicks are easy prey for introduced predators like cats and rats. South of St. Helena is the tiny island group of Tristan De Pinna, battered by the South Atlantic's weather. This is the most far-flung of the inhabited overseas territories.
Well, after 3 weeks at sea, we finally made it. I had my doubts at a few points, but here we are. Welcome to the most remote inhabited island in the world.
It's the only place on the whole planet where Atlantic yellow-nosed albatrosses breed. All of the UK overseas territories are very precious, important on a global scale for their wildlife. from tropical reefs and rainforests to vast penguin colonies. To visit them all has been the adventure of a lifetime, often extremely difficult, but more than worth it. It's given me an entirely new perspective on Britain's natural history.
Welcome to paradise.
The Britain's Treasure Islands book explores the unique wildlife, cultures and history of all of the UK overseas territories. Visit britainstreasureislands.com for details. In sincere thanks to Lord Ashcroft for funding the donation of 1 copy of the Britain's Treasure Islands book to every secondary school across the UK and her overseas territories. Thanks also to all Kickstarter backers and all sponsors and partners for making the 40 mini-documentaries possible.